Hey guys, Chito Fahadens here. Are you ready for Chapter 3 of the Anamorphic Cookbook? In Chapter 1, I explain the course structure, how it works, and the mad advantages of being a member of the channel. If you're not a member, click the join button below to unlock more videos. In Chapter 2, we looked at how the anamorphic look delivers high production value for audiences, even if they don't know what anamorphic really is. Let's just say anamorphic is cinematic. If you missed those videos, I highly recommend going back for them. If you're not a member of the channel, you'll be watching this video right before our Q&A with Atlas's founders Dan Keynes and Forrest Schultz on Wednesday to cover this first module. So come back and we'll have a blast. If you're a member, start thinking about the questions you want to ask and submit them on the Discord server. In this chapter, we're going back in time to the birth and popularization of anamorphics in film. It's a story with more twists than you imagine. So far, we all agree that this anamorphic thing is awesome, and that's how we want to shoot. Films were not always like this. In fact, there were plenty of obstacles in the anamorphic road to mainstream. The word anamorphosis comes from the Greek, and it means to reshape. In our case, we are reshaping the image from the real world into a squeezed version that lands inside the camera, either on film or the sensor. Patents don't go as far back as the Greek Empire though. The first patent for an anamorphic lens is from 1898 in Germany by Paul Rudolph, and it's about using cylindrical lenses to convert a circle into an ellipse. There were issues regarding the quality of the lenses at the time, and the project did not go forward. In 1910, Ernesto Zollinger in Italy had another stab at it, this time directly related to film. His anamorphics aimed to squish the image onto the film. Wait, what? Oh, they aimed to do that vertically, effectively using half the amount of film for each frame. He'd then reproject the images through a decompressing lens. He got so close. He just missed out on 90 degrees of rotation. A few years later, during World War I, a French scientist by the name of Henri Chrétien was using anamorphics to widen the field of view for military tanks. The war was over, the Triple Entente won, and Chrétien's tanks had to chill out for a bit. It was only 10 years after the war, in 1928, that he patented another anamorphic invention. His invention had the same idea as Zollinger's, squeezing image onto the film. This time in the proper orientation, making it so a wider field of view could be compressed to the same size of film in the camera, just the way we like it. Then stretched back out on projection. This amazing lens system was called hypergonar, but we're gonna say hypergonar. Familiar name, no? It was presented to the Optical Society of America later in the same year, but it didn't catch on back then. Chrétien's mistake was not showcasing how his lens could be used to increase the screen size, but just boost the film area. It was sort of like watching an anamorphic epic story on your phone. The size of the screen does matter, and all that epicness doesn't look that big of a deal in such a tiny screen. In 1930, the Goerz American Optical Company started making the Cine Panor for 16mm cameras, and this could have been it. But the world was going through the Great Depression, and everything that was not really a hit right off the bat was discarded. When put up against the advent of sound in Hollywood in 1927,
Wait a minute, you ain't heard nothing yet.
the Cine Panor was just too tiny. After World War II, in the 1950s, things were changing up in America. Television was everywhere, and there was a lot more entertainment options besides the classic going to the movies. This time was also marked by the end of the golden age of Hollywood, which severely impacted the profitability of films, making studios much more selective of what they'd produce. Several small studios went broke at this time, and Hollywood's lifestyle was staring down the barrel of a gun. During the first few years, a lot of things were tested out. We had the first run-ins with 3D, the extra weird smell-o-vision, and eventually,
This is Cinerama.
in 1952. Cinerama was a super convoluted process that involved shooting 3 times more film and stitching it all together to create a screen that was much wider than what audiences were used to. This is Cinerama was the promo for the format, and it yielded the second largest box office revenue in that year. Can you imagine that? Here's what made audiences go crazy about Cinerama. Up until this point, all films had a 4:3 aspect ratio, just like television. We'll get to aspect ratios in a little bit. This is Cinerama starts the same way like I did just now. Actually, worse. It starts off with a 12-minute black and white lecture by famous newscaster Lowell Thomas on how humans have struggled to capture movement on pictures since the dawn of time. At the end of the lecture, he says,
"Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cinerama."
And the 2 adjacent screens come on, full of color, expanding your measly 4:3 into 2.65:1 and going for an immersive ride along several landmarks in the world. Minds were blown. Executives went nuts. This is Cinerama is what put Hollywood back on track to success. The folks at 20th Century Fox figured that by making screens bigger, hence the experience more immersive, TVs wouldn't stand a chance and audiences would flock back to the theaters. They were not wrong. The same year Cinerama came out, Fox set their sights onto Chrétien, whose anamorphic patents had expired. They bought all of his hypergoner anamorphics and brought the lenses along with Chrétien to America to shoot the Robe. These hastily imported anamorphic lenses were such a big deal that they had armed guards protecting them at all times on set. They also didn't require big changes to the filming process. Films kept using the same cameras, just throwing the scope in front of their usual lenses. And theaters just incorporated similar lenses in front of their projectors to revert the image to its original shape. This was the origin of CinemaScope. The slogan, "You see it without glasses," was a catchphrase deriding films in theaters which used 3D as a competing gimmick to attract audiences at the time. After 20th Century Fox had a handle on shooting anamorphic films, they started to make more lenses and rent them out to other studios. Bosch and Lomb was responsible for making these lenses and called them Baltars. But demand was so high that many other players got into the game. The thing is, these original lenses weren't any better than the double focus setups that we have today. They required 2 camera assistants, one to focus the prime lens and one to focus the anamorphic lens. They had subpar resolution, degrading image quality significantly. They sucked at close focus, and they had horrible artifacts such as mumps, making people look fatter, rounder than they actually were when in close-ups. This was such a big deal for the stars at the time that they'd have written in their contracts that they wouldn't participate in anamorphic productions, so they didn't look bloated. In spite of all these issues, CinemaScope pictures still drew crowds to movie theaters consistently. Needless to say that other studios didn't love the idea of renting some piece of tech from a competitor, so there was a lot of incentive to come up with different solutions and alternatives to Fox's anamorphics. Enter Panavision, originally a supplier of anamorphic lenses for theaters. Robert Gottschalk, the founder of the company, developed a technique to counter anamorphic mumps, and their lenses got a lot of traction in 1958. In 1959, they get an Academy Scientific Technical Award for their Auto Panatars. Ben-Hur, which was shot in Panavision 70mm, secured the company's reputation for good in Hollywood. Other formats also took flight at the same time, such as Taio and VistaVision, among others. By 1961, those other techniques and Panavision looked much better than the original CinemaScope lenses, and in less than a decade, Fox's CinemaScope process was dead. The name went under for a little bit, but we brought it back in recent times as a way to refer to a specific aspect ratio or some sort of magic nostalgia, although sometimes we just call it scope. If you want more technical info about the earliest anamorphic lenses, don't despair. The next video is about that, which makes this the perfect moment to like this video. The inner workings of anamorphics are going to be covered in detail during Module 2 of the cookbook, also brought to you by Atlas LensCo. Since you're so interested, I'm sure you already subscribed to the channel, right? If you're liking the cookbook but you want more, become a member of the channel and you'll unlock more cookbook videos, along with access to an exclusive scored server, PDF guides, and more useful tools. I hope you learned something new today, and I'll see you on Chapter 4. Chito Verhadings, out.